Welcome to Curiosulus Chronicles Podcast, where we share insights from our inspiring guests in the world of leadership and coaching. In today's podcast, we have an experienced and award winning technology executive with a demonstrated history of driving business change using technology, leading digital transformations, and fostering technological innovation. He is skilled in engaging with C suite peers to align technology strategies with corporate goals. He was included in the annual listing of top 10 most influential leaders in tech to follow by CIO Look magazine in March 2023. Before we start our episode, I want to thank Abhyuda Global Coach Circle for their continuous support. So, without a further ado, let's welcome Giles. Welcome, Giles. Welcome to Curiosulus Chronicles podcast.
Cheers, Rohit. Thanks very much, mate.
How are you doing?
Really good, thanks. Still, obviously, riding the waves of the book launch a couple of weeks ago, and still trying to work out what's gone on and the craziness behind it. But it's been a lot of fun over the last couple of weeks. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. And thanks for accepting this invite, especially after you've been so busy after the book launch. So first of all, congratulations on the book launch.
Thank you.
It's amazing. I've got my copy with me, if anyone can see.
Of course, I always have my copy with me as well.
Yeah. No, great. We'll talk about this as well. But before we start, I would like to hear, can you share your journey when becoming a CTO and CIO? And what were some pivotal moments for you in your career?
That's a cracking starter question. Yeah, my background is software engineering, right? First and foremost, my degree leaving university is in software engineering. And I started, as many do, as a graduate engineer, and spent many years working my way up the sort of the standard corporate management ladder. Going from graduate engineer to software engineer to senior software engineer to engineering manager to head of engineering to VP of engineering through to CTO and CIO and the roles that I do today. It took the 25 years of going up the corporate ladder to do that. And it has been tough at times. It's been fun at times. As you asked, there's also been some pivotal moments on the journey as well. And I was asked the other day by somebody, what would I be saying to myself, my younger self, earlier on in my engineering career? And I think I would have answered by saying I needed a coach earlier than I actually had one. That for me, I think, is something that really could have made a difference. Because when I had that first leader, that first boss in an organization who really was a coach and a mentor as well as a boss as such, that really enabled me to experiment, set hypotheses, try new things, learn from failures, dusting myself off, trying new things, following on from that. And so for me, I would have said to my younger self, get a coach earlier on in your career. That would have been really, really good. And of course, that's, the journey over 20, 25 years from leaving with a degree in software engineering, becoming a CTO, and obviously ending up in a world where, I'm in a world of Agile as well.
Yeah, because a lot of this is a great point you actually mentioned regarding having a coach and a mentor. I think I've seen in my experience, a lot of leaders actually don't go for coaching. They think kind of their mental model is that they know everything. They don't need a coach. They don't need help.
I think that's short-sighted. And I've seen it far too much as well. I've seen even new CEOs, people new to the CEO role, right? Sort of come into an organization and do I'm CEO now, so we're going to do everything my way, rather than I'm CEO now. Let's go and have a talk to the rest of the organization about how I should step up and act and behave and what support they need from me to do the job the best way possible. And I've seen, a real differing of those behaviors over the years from working with CEOs who go from being at one end of the scale, really bureaucratic, command and control, micromanagers, all the way through to the sort of the more modern CEO who really is there kind of going, I need help. Help me. Show me what the art of possible is. I can help you get there. I can lead you to get there, but, help me and I'll help you in return. It's a completely different mindset. So I've experienced that exactly as you say it.
Mm-hmm. So how this role then? Obviously, you gone through the ladder in your career. So how does you think CTO role has evolved during your career, during the tech evolution?
I think it's evolved from a standpoint that when I started my career, CTOs were sat in ivory towers. Okay, you didn't go and talk to the CTO. The CTO wasn't sat in an open plan office with all the people in his or her team, right, at that point in time. They were sat in ivory towers, and you might get to go and talk to their deputy or their deputy's deputy, who might be a head of engineering or an engineering manager or somebody like that. But you never got any time. I can guarantee, CEOs earlier on in my career will not have known who I was as just part of the team. But I think there's been a change and an evolution where, as they've evolved, can I say, become more human, joined the workforce, not operating out of an ivory tower, away from actually the sort of the day-to-day running of the organization. The modern CEO, entrenched, sleeves rolled up, egoless, trying to empower the people who are your primary determinants of success to deliver amazing outcomes is, I think, what a modern CTO is today. And having sort of seen that at points in my career where that really worked, that's what I aspired to be like as well, to enable people the best way possible. A modern CTO is somebody who is now today a coach and a mentor for other people, somebody who's an enabler and a facilitator for them, not just somebody who's a blocker and someone who's ordering teams and people. We've got to have that by that deadline without fail. I think that long since gone from those days. Modern CTOs are a completely different breed to what they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. And I hope that they continue to evolve as well.
Yes, I think you made a great point. The new age CTOs or any C-suite level or any leader is about coaching and leadership, right? It's not an enabler you mentioned, which is a great word. I think that's what we want to inspire our new age leaders, saying this role is not about, it's a job, it's a role of enablement, it's a role of a leader, not a manager.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm curious here, then what leadership philosophy then do you adhere to when you're managing like technical teams?
Can I say Giles's philosophy?
Sure you can.
I'm not necessarily sure. I mean, come on, we've all sort of done the learnings from the servant leadership of Robert Greenleaf from the 70s and situational leadership and, all of these other models that are out there, right? All the great leadership, versions and structures that you can follow and to make you a better leader. But I genuinely, I think from going through the school of hard knocks and seeing what the art of the possible is and what works with people, what motivates them, right? You've always got to understand the context of the business you are operating in before being able to actually assign a style to how you're going to perform that role in that organization. Being a leader in one business does not mean you're going to naturally be a leader in exactly the same way in another business. You've got to tune your leadership style for the context of the people and the business in it. And so as such, I think it's Giles's style, and it seems to work. And I've ended up in organizations where the people who've been enabled have just done amazing things, delivered amazing outcomes, delighted customers in ways that they didn't believe they could do it. But once they're enabled, once they're facilitated, once they're given that opportunity to do it, they go off and do amazing things.
Mm, mm. So how important is then having a technical acumen then to be a role of to do a role of a CTO?
I still think it's very important to be able to challenge on the conversations, to be able to still look at the architecture of the systems that you are building for a client, or internally if the client's someone internal to the organization. I think it's really important. I keep my hand in. I still sit here and play with little Raspberry Pis and things like this, code them and build IoT devices and other things as well. So, hone up my Python skills, certainly with AI apps that I've been building recently as well. But I'm not somebody who's going to go and productionize systems and write production code and build deployment pipelines and Terraform scripts and Docker containers, etc., etc. That's not me. But the great thing is maintaining familiarity with it all, maintaining an understanding of it as the technologies improve and get better. Such that you can still have great conversations. You got to remember, at heart, open me up, and I'm a software engineer. I was 25 years ago. I still am today.
Yeah, that's important. It's what's in the heart, right? What's the core of us is, rather than just, like I said, just not a job. This is a role we live by, we breathe by.
It's a vocation.
So, yeah, it's a vocation. Yeah. So how, obviously you becoming a software engineer, then becoming more leadership roles, and then going to a C-suite level roles. How your approach to leadership changed, especially in crisis times like pandemic? Anything changed in your philosophy?
Well,
I know Giles' philosophy.
Yeah, let's go back before even the pandemic. Again, right? This is a very much a human trait, but humans learn by copying other humans, right? Anything that we do, even in the workplace, even in home life, you're always seeing old photographs on LinkedIn where the grandfather's walking with his hands held behind his back, and the 5-year-old boy walking next to him is also walking along with his arms held behind his back. People copy other people. Humans copy other humans. When I first started learning about management and understanding what was possible, of course, I was looking at the CTOs that I aspired to be, who were all command and control, who were all micromanagers, who were all bureaucratic. And I was awful as a manager to begin with. Quite happily share that. And I've known a lot of other people who have been through exactly the same route I have, and have said exactly the same things. They didn't have the coaches, they didn't have the managers to actually support them in their career. And as such, they were pretty, useless, or they were the C-suite who they were aspiring to be. And it took a while for me to suddenly realize that I'd been trying to rail against that machine, rage against the machine for some time. And I didn't want to be command and control yet. I was literally a clone of these other managers I had. And I somehow slipped into a pattern that I didn't think I was ever going to slip into. It took some coaching, it took some working with other people, and actually, I think a lot of determination on my behalf to kind of go, stop, I don't want to be like this anymore. I've got to stop operating like this. This is not how I want to be operating in the workplace, and started to change. And as soon as it obviously started to change, the world became a much easier place. You start getting empathy with all of the people in your teams that you're working with. You're enabling them, you're facilitating them, you're letting them achieve amazing outcomes, and seeing the results is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, I mean, I think things changed obviously during the pandemic period, moving people home. I'll tell you right now, a CEO I spoke to at the sort of the start of the pandemic was really, really worried about everybody working from home. He genuinely believed that people were going to be slack shy. They were going to just mess around. They wouldn't put in any effort for doing work. But I think one of the things he missed is that people in the technology world, software engineering world, development world, whatever you want to describe it as, have worked for home for years.
Yeah.
And they put in as much effort at home as they do in the workplace. Right? And as such, for me, I thought that's absolutely fantastic, because to actually see that they went home at the start of the pandemic and delivered probably even more successful outcomes, really stunned and shocked some of the leaders I was working with, because they genuinely believed that productivity was going to take a nosedive. And in fact, actually, productivity probably went up. So there were some learned behaviors and some learned traits that we carry forward into modern ways of working today. Most organizations have policies now of 2 or 3 days working from home, or 2 or 3 days working in the office, right? And that just works brilliantly for a lot of people. And I personally have not seen a drop in any form of productivity at all because of those working patterns. So I think it was a little bit short-sighted at the start of the pandemic, with CEOs, and senior members of organizations panicking or worrying that somehow all these software engineers were going to go home and start taking the mickey and not doing any work at all. It didn't happen. Didn't happen.
Yeah. See how their belief was challenged then, wasn't it? That
Totally.
Yeah. So this is probably the I would say pandemics. The best thing was pandemic was that people's beliefs were challenged, and then they realized that okay, especially in technology world, like you mentioned, we can work from home and we can be as productive, if not more. And basically, we are more productive, but we can be anywhere, work from anywhere, and then do the job. But again,
totally,
mixing with people, it does help. So hybrid actually works better than coming full time coming back. Yeah.
And you've also got to think that digital transformation, digital evolution also accelerated in the pandemic era, because of course we were having to deal with situations we had never dealt with before. And that had a huge amount of acceleration for organizations to get to certain points of time that they thought were 2, 3, 4, 5 years off into the future, when actually they were, being done near enough real time now. And I think that's fantastic. I think we are further along on a digital journey than we would otherwise have been, thanks in part to the lockdown.
Something came out in a better way than it was before pandemic.
Correct.
That was the only plus side of that. Yeah, that was the only plus side of the pandemic, unfortunately. But yeah. So, what's the one decision in your career then you believe was a fundamental to your success as a leader?
I think it was the fact that I decided that Agile was going to be as big a thing in my career as technology. And the fact that I started really taking Agile ways of working seriously while I was getting more senior in organizations and working up the ladders that you were talking about earlier. And for me, I think that's been the biggest keys to success. Learning all about different ways of being in an organization, learning all the different frameworks, the different methodologies, the context that they can bring to ways of working to enable people to do their job better and easier, has, for me, I think, been one of the best things. Early on, I became one of the first disciplined agilists in the UK, became one of the first coaches in the UK, and as such, those types of things I've written in the book have actually been a major part of helping me become the leader who I've become today. And I thank a lot of people in the book because of that, especially, Mark Lyons, Scott Ambler, the guys who created Disciplined Agile sort of 10, 11, 12 years ago now. And if I hadn't adopted those, and if I hadn't kept that in sync, and I always say today I wear a hat with two halves, that of a tech leader and that of an agile leader. And if I hadn't done that, I probably still could have become successful. But I don't think it would have been in the same way I look after the people, or want to aspire to look after the people, as I do today, the way I want to coach them, mentor them, advise them, guide them, support them, nurture them, grow them, whatever adjectives we want to use. It's because of learning all about the agile mindset first and foremost before anything else. I think adopting it and bringing that to organizations and the successes that have happened because of it. And it's not me that's done it, by the way. I always say this when I'm talking to people, I've enabled it. It's not me that's actually gone off and done the work and delivered those amazing outcomes for clients and customers. That's the people in the teams, right? And so, again, I might have sort of flicked a switch or something like that to make a change in a business. But it's those people who've organically changed and done amazing things and achieved amazing outcomes, possibly because they're closer to the customer than other parts of the organization. And as such, if I hadn't had all of that learning and training and coaching and understanding of the agile world for so many years, I don't think I would have been the same leader as I am today.
It created that pivotal moment as well, like we were mentioning. That's probably what I'm getting as well. And talking about the book, what was the motivation behind this book when you started?
Very good question. I've been helping businesses go through change for a number of years at this point, and had been a member of C-suite in a number of organizations at this point in time. I think for me, there were several catalysts of it. As you know, lots of virtual meetups, conferences, certainly during the pandemic years, and that actually enabled to get my message out to other audiences, who then in return came back to me and actually said, you know what? You should be sharing that message wider to bigger audiences, further audience, and I was like, okay. And the last meetup I did in 2020, before the pandemic hit, I stood up, did a talk, and it was a brilliant moment. And when you do a talk, and you wait for Q&A, and you've got to wait to see whether your talk has landed with the people or not. And you're either going to get some really smart question from somebody, or you're going to get a question which is just really, you know what I mean? It's going to be a negative question. Yeah. And anyway, this arm came up in the front row. And I sort of said, I pointed to the guy and said, you. And he said, hi, I'm Paul. I said, hi, Paul, what's your question? He said, I haven't got a question. And, it completely threw me, because I was expecting to deal with something. And he said, I just want to say that you should put this talk on a USB stick and send it to every CEO in London, so that they understand what change is about, right? Wow. And I just thought at that moment in time, wow, this is insane. I didn't know really how to take it. I just sort of went, thanks very much, question, and moved on. But in all seriousness, I kept in touch with Paul, and he was one of those catalysts behind the journey for the book. Too many people sort of came to me and sort of said, "Can you help us? Can you help us? How do you help the C-suite or the executive team that you're working with evolve and change and grow, etc., etc." And I suddenly thought, well, I can't be there supporting every C-suite team across London or the UK or wherever. And so the book was genuinely sort of the outcome of the last 10 years of my life, getting, through the senior roles, et cetera, and putting together what I use to guide the C-suite, to guide CEOs, to guide CFOs, to guide SLT members, directors in organizations, about how to deal with the change and adopt and embrace the change in the organization. I'm telling them basically, giving them guidance how to lead this change process that they have to go through. And it's no longer something, as we know, just assigned to the technology elements of an organization. These ways of working now are embraced right the way across an organization. True business agility, true organizational agility, right? So you're trying to bring that same mindset to the marketing teams, the sales teams, the finance teams, the legal teams, helping them build out contextually the right ways of working that can support them to do their job the best way possible. So that they're supporting everybody else internally in the business. You're removing the sort of the silo happenings that occur in an organization, and you're just getting everybody on that same mission, that same purpose, to delight some customers at the end of the day and make money for the business the smartest and the easiest way possible.
Yeah. 100% true. 100% true. I do believe, going through any journey, especially your one, writing a book, there were a lot of moments in your life. Like I said, this is the work of last 10 years. And what did you learn about yourself? I'm quite curious to know.
I actually learned that some of the things I had done were not done as well as I actually had hoped or expected. With doing a bit of a retrospective and a bit of a look back on some of the things, you take the learnings from it. And I genuinely did some sort of inward reflection and kind of thought, could have done that better. That was bloody awesome. We did that really well, but there were certain things, and the ways of working and the sort of the way I approach guiding organizations, looking at their culture, their leadership, their execution, their adaptability, and their responsiveness. Right, all of those sort of 5 key areas, I was able to improve on that and really hone in on some of those areas, compared to what I had done yesteryear or 5 years ago or 10 years ago. And I appreciate things have just evolved as I've got older and grayer. The process has matured as well. Yeah. The model I use to help organizations change, talked throughout the book, is something that has continually evolved and will continue to evolve. And there'll probably be, in a number of years' time, a second edition to this where, there will be new learnings, new additions to it, and new things, new strings to the bow for leaders so that they can introduce different ways of working, for example, in organizations, as we learn more in our collective field that you and I work in. So yeah, a lot of retrospective findings that some of the things I thought, wow, they were great at the time, not so great, and conversely, some of the things I thought not so great have actually turned out better than I thought. And so again, there's some real personal reflections in the book, some personal learnings, some personal friction points I've discovered over the years, how to do something well, how not to do something bad. So, again, there's a lot of me in here. Someone recently left a review for the book and said that they could see there was a lot of the author's experience over the years throughout the book and the journey that they go on in the book. And I thought, yeah, that's probably very true. I didn't necessarily set out to sort of put me as the person sort of driving the journey through the book, but there probably is a lot of that in the chapters. And you can see that I've sort of been through the school of hard knocks to actually work out what relatively works well and what's pretty, crappy in the business, which we shouldn't be doing at all.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of reflection that has gone on because of it. So thanks for the question.
Now, I curious here. You mentioned second edition, so I'm hoping the more you learn, the more is going to come out in the next book, next version, next edition.
I think so. I mean, I'm already toying with some other ideas for a second book on a sort of a pivot to the business agility topic. But yeah, I mean, no doubt this is a snapshot in time. This is a snapshot,
yes.
Up until April 2024 when the book came out. Things are going to continue to evolve. We see all the new movements being talked about online, reimagine Agile, for example, and all of these types of things. There will be new things that we all learn in the coming, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. There is no doubt there's going to probably be a second edition, which will include some of those new learnings, new failures, etc., and share that again with the leadership teams of businesses who want to learn how to lead change in an organization.
So Giles, based on your experience so far, what do you think the future is for the agile leadership, and especially in the C-suite level?
That's a very good question, and in some ways, I genuinely don't know. We know what's currently going on in organizations today.
Yeah.
We know that many of our colleagues in the Agile world have lost jobs recently because these roles are sort of very service orientated, supporting orientated in organizations. With the cost of living crises and not wanting to spend money from budgets, organizations have decided to, get rid of these coaching supportive roles in their droves, unfortunately, and that's meant that we've ended up in a situation where many Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, and other Agile roles are looking for work when really there should probably be actually plenty of work for them to do. I think, though, that if we can address the cost of living crisis, we can bring inflation back down, we can bring interest rates back down, I believe organizations will start investing and spending. They need still to change. Organizations are still starting change programs today. They are going to need Agile coaches, Scrum Masters, product managers, etc., in their workspaces. And I think we will start seeing people being hired and a real acceleration again in people starting digital, agile, change transformation programs, whatever you and your organization want to call it. So I don't genuinely know right now what the future brings. I do not believe Agile is going anywhere for many years yet. Right? There are so many people invested in these ways of working. We don't want these short-term transitions. We want these sort of sustained long-term transformations in our organizations today. And we're going to need the Agile leaders, the Agile coaches, the supporting roles within the business to actually make that happen. So, I still think there's a good long journey to go for people who are working in the space. I think there is one positive thing that comes out of this. As I said at the start, 20 years ago, I was working with leaders who were not aware of psychological safety, who weren't aware of empathy, who weren't aware of becoming leaders and coaches. They were true managers in the sense. And as such, as I said, we all emulated them. We copied them when we first became managers and leaders ourselves. I have a personal hope/goal that by the time a generation or two become those future leaders, they've never experienced command and control. They've never experienced micromanagement. They've never experienced the bullshit from those types of leaders, because I am really, really hopeful that the leaders they copy and aspire to follow naturally have some of these agile leadership tendencies in their leadership style. And for me, I think that's what's going to be a bit of a paradigm shift and a change for businesses in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And I would love to see that happen. I genuinely would. I would love people to, go, what was micromanagement? What was bureaucracy? We've never experienced this. Well, good for you, because I can tell you what, when you do experience it, it is, very tiresome, cumbersome, and slows organizations down. Whereas freeing people of those shackles really allows them to go off and do amazing things. And as such, I'm hoping that the future generations of leaders really are embracing, a lot of the sort of the agile leadership traits we see today in the amazing people out there.
Yeah, that's a very valid point, Charles. Very valid point. I think we can always change the future by working today. By changing today, we can make the future. And hopefully, by changing, when reading a book, leaders can understand what leadership is about. And then they can learn a better way of working with people, enabling them, and basically make a better future for everyone else.
Yeah.
So it's a very valid point. So thanks for sharing that, Charles. Thanks for sharing that. So coming back to your CTO role, what do you think this role is going to be in the next 5 to 10 years, especially with so much coming up with AI and other stuff? Where do you think this role is going to shape up?
I think this role is going to need to also start considering things in the sustainability space. I think this is also a role that's going to need to understand ethics a lot more as well. We are already seeing the challenges of using AI safely, correctly in organizations. The fact that there isn't a huge amount of AI governance out there. There's obviously a lot of AI bias out there today, which, still needs to be solved. And I think, these technology leaders are going to have to deal with ethics. They're going to have to deal with the new challenges of technology. They're going to have to stay abreast possibly of technology changes at a rate that's they've not experienced before. People like me have not experienced before. It's just going to sort of probably exponentially accelerate. But we've also got to look at the fact that, we've got to look after the planet at the same time. There's got to be a lot of green strategies. The problem is, the more compute power you put into AI, that's going to require more energy. So you're actually kind of doing damage by building out more and more systems with GPUs for these AI capabilities, which are going to require more and more energy capabilities being created for them. And that's not good for the green sustainability, ESG strategies that I think a lot of tech leaders need to be getting involved in. I write a blog post on medium.com, and I write a lot on those areas of ethics, of ESG, of sustainability, etc., because I think future technology leaders, whether you're a CTO, CIO, head of engineering, whatever your amazing role is that you do in the organization, you need to have awareness of these things that are going to come up and sort of nip you in the backside. Otherwise, we've got to have the right policies, the right governance in place. And if we don't, these things could actually damage the businesses we are working in today.
Yeah, I actually never thought about this. So thanks for sharing this, Giles. Now I'm more curious to what the future can, bring to us, and how we can actually manage this sustainability, especially the like you mentioned that the compute power we're going to be using is this blockchain. That requires a lot of compute power as well. Never actually thought about that to linking it to. So thanks for opening up my mind as well.
No worries.
No, thank you. So what advice would you give to aspiring tech leaders to help them grow and succeed?
Do you know what? I'm going to go back to the question I got asked, as I said, and I shared at the start.
Yeah.
I think it's don't just get hung up on the technology element. Again, I think it's a case of if you can find somebody support or coach you on your journey as well, I think that's really important. I think if you can get support to help you get to where you want in a much happier, easier way, I think that'll be fantastic. You know, find people who are willing to coach and support you on that journey. I wish I'd done it earlier than at the point in time when I had it, but as soon as that point in time when I had it, I knew it was very liberating, and I knew it was actually going to enable me to do some more amazing things. So I would also think, you know, as I said, consider working practices, consider the people. There has to be, I think, a larger focus on the people before process, tooling, infrastructure, etc., etc. And as such, you know, not only can you get that with the coaching, but for me, the secondary element was obviously everything Agile, becoming that Scrum Master, first of all, then that coach, then that instructor, you know, et cetera, and then obviously, you know, to where I am today. I think if I didn't have that, I wouldn't necessarily be as good a tech leader as I aspire to be, shall I say, on a daily basis, right? And I think people should augment their tech leadership with other things to make them more rounded, to make them more T-shaped, more E-shaped, whatever you want to call them these days, and just to give them, you know, greater capabilities in the workplace. Fixation on technology is good, but it's not going to be the answer for everything. You know, your people are your primary determinants of success, as I said earlier, and you've got to be able to support them as much as the technology that you're responsible for.
Yeah. Brilliantly put, Giles. Thank you very much for coming up, giving your time, your precious time here on this podcast for today. I really appreciate all the wisdom you shared with us. Any last advice or anything you want to share with the listeners?
I think what I want to share is thank you to you for running these, and for any listeners to actually go back and watch Rohit's other videos, as I've done.
Thank you.
They are fantastic, and there are a lot of great insights in them for people to learn from. Right, a very good setup you got going there. So yeah, go and look at Rohit's other videos on YouTube, and get some, you know, real world learnings from the other people he's had on the channel.
Thank you very much, Giles. And hopefully we can go a little bit deeper into Agile leadership in the future episodes as well.
That would be fantastic. I'd love to do that.
Yeah,
great.
Brilliant. So I'm looking forward as well. We can, and everyone, please get this book. Anyone looking for leadership and clearly Agile, a leadership guide to business agility. Thank you very much, listeners. Thanks for watching this episode, and thanks for listening on Apple and Google Play podcast. Have a great day. Have a good weekend, and take care. Stay safe. Bye for now. Bye, Giles.
Bye, Rohit.